All right, gentlemen. So next on the order of business here, UFC 254, the co-main event between the former champion at middleweight, Robert Whittaker. He's going to be taking on Jared Cannonier, the man of many weight classes, who seemed to have found his home at 185. We can assume that this is a number one contender fight. Israel Adesanya um, very seriously eyeing Jared Cannonier as the next guy he wants to fight. So before we start going into some of the more technical aspects of this, just do you think the winner of this fight belongs in the title fight with Adesanya next?
So I will say 100% yes. Like I don't see any other scenario in which the winner of this does not get a title shot. Like unless if even if it's the worst fight ever, like who are you going to slide in there? 185 is filled with a division of guys who we've all seen already been there. They're too old. They're coming off losses. Whatever the case may be. The winner of this fight is without a doubt the number one contender, and unless if the UFC can find some way to, I don't know, whether it be a GSP comeback or something to strip away a title shot for Jared Cannonier if he walks away the winner, I just don't see it. I just don't see it. God forbid, like he comes out of this fight again. If Cannonier does win, hopefully he comes out without any injuries that could delay a potential matchup against Adesanya or anything like that. Um, and the same goes with Whittaker. If he wins, hopefully there's nothing that can come out of left field to mess up the winner of this getting a title shot, because whoever it is definitely deserves it.
Yeah, it seems. I mean, I pretty much agree with everything you said right there, Matt. It's like the options are surprisingly limited, kind of in middleweight. So yeah, it seems to make sense no matter who wins, especially Cannonier. The only thing for me is if Whitaker wins, it feels like his fight with Adesanya was too recent. It was what? It was over a year ago now, but I don't know. It feels too fresh. And considering, how Whitaker lost, um, that just doesn't seem it seems too quick for me, but at the same time, it's like, well, what do you do, right? It's kind of a bad spot, I would say, for Whitaker, kind of similar to what Holloway's been put in now, where his instant rematch that he got against Volkanovski, it's like, okay, you can do that, but then if he loses, well, then what? He's lost to this champion, and how are you gonna get him, a third fight? He's gonna have to really work his way unless he gets robbed like people think he might have in the second fight. So it's kind of I don't know. It seems like to me it'd be hurting him a little bit, but at the same time, he's not going to go out there and want to lose. So it's a weird position, but one that when there's so few options and other challengers to throw right in there, I guess it's not the worst spot. Just in terms of how much will he have been able to improve and prepare for a rematch with Adesanya in this short amount of time? Is kind of what I'm thinking too, because that was a brutal loss for him, and something we don't often see happen to Whitaker. So yeah, I think that the winner does have to get it. It's just it feels weird. It feels a little bit weird and too soon if it's Whitaker for me, but what are you gonna do, right? If Cannonier wins though, absolutely, it's a no-brainer. If you do something other than that, it's like, what do you have against him and Aljamain Sterling, UFC? Like that kind of thing. So
You got a good point there. I mean, if Jared Cannonier wins, then this is not even a reasonable question to ask. Like he is the number one contender with a win over Robert Whitaker, and hands down, I think only a fool would disagree with that. But then if Robert Whitaker wins, I think we do run into a very interesting brick wall here, and perhaps the solution is Adesanya testing waters elsewhere. This whole talk about John Jones and Adesanya has renewed legs. If the alternative is to see a title fight that we just saw in recent memory that wasn't even close to competitive. Um, so I do think there are some other wrinkles to this depending on who wins this fight and what that title picture looks like at middleweight. Now, as far as this fight is concerned, I'm I'm really of two minds here. Robert Whitaker is definitely the more skilled guy. I think that's a pretty fair statement. He's the guy who has a more proven track record, has fought the higher level competition more consistently. Probably has the better highlight reel as well. but he does leave himself open for some serious punishment. He's a guy who has been through his fair share of wars. He's had his damage. He's very injury prone. There are things about Robert Whittaker that make him fragile enough to where a powerhouse like Cannonier might be able to take advantage if Whittaker's sloppy. How do you fellas see this?
So ever since he moved down to 185, Jared Cannonier has really found himself. And I think the most impressive part about his run at 185 is just that he seems so much stronger than everybody in that division. And I think that's going to be the difference in this fight is his power. I do agree with you 100% that Robert Whittaker is the more skilled fighter when it comes to technique and in overall polish as a fighter. But Cannonier is a super strong dude who's not terrible anywhere. He's a solid dude wherever the fight can go. He's not terrible off of his back. He can get up if he gets taken down, and he can knock your block off if you stand in front of him for too long. And ask Anderson Silva how his knee is still attached to his body. It's just he's got a lot of power, and if he can find your chin, or if he can find any sweet spot, you leave an opening, he's going to find it. And if he finds it, he's going to put you on the canvas. And again, that move from heavyweight, where he started in the UFC, just steady dropping down divisions, heavyweight to light heavyweight, now 185. One thing that he hasn't lost is that power, man. So Whittaker's got to be really slick with his movement, with his head movement, not standing in one space for too long. If he does that over the course of this fight, then he can absolutely win. Both guys I see paths to victories for. I just think the power is going to be the main catalyst in determining who wins this fight.
Yeah, I think it's hard to argue against that. I mean, Cannonier has proven to be kind of surprisingly powerful at middleweight, and shows a very high fight IQ. He's a very patient fighter. I think a great example of that is the Anderson Silva fight. Silva didn't get a chance to really bait him into anything, but he took his time and checked the kick and hurt Silva's leg again. So he just that one I think is a lot more telling, even though Silva is obviously a little past it. That's a great example to see what the kind of potential that Cannonier, how far that he can go in this division, and we've seen it since then. With the Hermanson, when he was really counted out in that one, but went out there and performed very well. But taking on somebody like Robert Whittaker, who I think he showed rebounding against Till. Obviously that wasn't the craziest like war that we were used to seeing from Whittaker, especially when you look at those Romero fights or anything, but styles make fights. That was still a very good high level MMA fight. And I think that he showed, improved fight IQ himself, which, he already had a pretty high fight IQ and very patient himself, picked his shots nicely, just kind of, landed the better shots overall in somewhat of a chess match with Darren Till. And we've seen Whittaker in the past very creative, like kind of sneakily creative with the strikes and how he moves. He does have some wrestling in his back pocket, but obviously more comfortable on the feet. Man, I don't know. He's so diverse, I think, with what he can bring in kind of mixing it up on the feet compared to a lot of these middleweights that aren't named Adesanya, obviously. And man, Whittaker for me, like during his title run, he was one of those guys where it's like, all right, I don't know if I could see anybody beating him outside of Yo Romero. Like he's been so loved and appreciated for that whole run that he was on, and then Adesanya came in there and took him down to earth a little bit, took him back down among the hardcores, that is. And now here we are again in a position where Cannonier's kind of becoming that guy, right? Where he's not getting maybe as much appreciation as he should be for the things that he's done. Very similar to Whittaker on his rise, being the first guy to take out Jacare when Jacare should have got a title shot, but he had to face this guy, this young Australian guy on the come up who like, all right, let's see him get this one. Oh no, this Australian guy is very good. He knocked him out, and things alike there. So for this matchup, yeah, I think it's just a matter of Whittaker. Obviously, he's been chin checked a lot in these last couple of years. If Cannonier can land something, then if he follow it up right away, he could close the show there. But I don't know. I think Whittaker is going to be just too mobile, too out of the way, and active with his movement. And he's not. I don't think he's going to take unnecessary risks because if he does that, that's where he gets into real trouble here. I mean, he's fought Romero for 10 rounds. I think that is kind of a big experience that he's had to go through where, all right, I don't want to go through that again. The guy feels like what he said, he feels like he's made out of steel or something. So I'm sure the Cannonier is probably at least maybe not the same build as Romero in that regard, but he is a very fit man himself, and it's very hard. So you can draw that comparison. But for a quick pick, I mean, I think Whittaker. We've said it. He's the more skilled guy overall. We've seen more from him against higher competition throughout these last several years in his middleweight run. So I got to go with Whittaker. But yeah, he can definitely be caught, and Cannonier can get the win here.
Yeah, I'm leaning toward Cannonier, and that's against my better judgment. But whatever, I'll do it anyway. I think Cannonier has a good shot at winning this fight. If we see, I honestly think if we see the same Robert Whittaker that we saw in the Darren Till fight, then Cannonier certainly can win. Robert Whittaker has proven himself to be a hittable guy at times, and you don't want to be hittable against Cannonier. So and quite honestly, I'm still not fully sold on Darren Till as a high level middleweight. So that's really where I'm just not sure what to pull away from that. But I don't think you can get in that same sort of fight with Jared Cannonier and take those same punches from him and come out on the other side of it. So I'm reluctantly going to pick Jared Cannonier here.
No, yeah, I agree with that. I'm rolling with Cannonier here, and not only for the fact that I just think that it's his time, but along with that, Whitaker's been in all these crazy wars that we just talked about. You mentioned Drake, you mentioned the Romero fights, and those are the types of fights against, he's against a slower moving guy with a lot of power, Yoel Romero. The difference is Cannonier's not going to wait as long as Romero will. Cannonier's going to see an opening and take it. Romero, like that we've seen in recent years, like he will wait and try to lull you asleep. Just stand there, stick his tongue out at you, kind of, do some crazy, weird stuff. Cannonier's not about that, man. Cannonier's going to punch you in the mouth if he sees that opening. And that's what he's got to be ready for. And you got to consider how much tread is left on the tire at this point, right? Very good win for him against Till, but at some point, all those wars do add up. And if a guy like Cannonier can go in there and put a pace on you, which I don't necessarily think he will have to do in this fight. I think him being patient and just waiting for his opening will be enough. But if Cannonier does come out and pushes the pace, then that's going to be really, really interesting and add a different wrinkle to this fight that I'm not expecting. But I'm going to roll with Cannonier as a winner on this one.
Yeah, reasonable, reasonable choices there. I can't go against Whittaker yet until we see somebody. He's not on. I know I said this kind of about Habib in the last prediction there, but for me, Whittaker, he's still a little bit above until we see him lose to somebody else. Actually, get finished. Of course, people argue that the Romero rematch, that he didn't win that one or that should have been a draw. I think I did score that one a draw, but either way, not a loss for him. So don't know how much he does have left, having been through all of this, but I think he can still beat most of these top guys. And with that said, just assuming that he is to win, I don't know. Like I said at the beginning, I don't know how much he could have improved to, give Adesanya any new problems yet, which is why it makes me kind of sad that he would get a title shot so soon. But who knows? Maybe he'll go out there and look absolutely ridiculous in this fight. You never know what's going to happen. It's Fight Island, right? Crazy things.
Yeah, I mean, we just saw Brian Ortega outclass.
Yeah, exactly.
So anything is possible. Yeah, I think either way we're going to be very entertained, and the middleweight title picture is going to have some serious shakeup, no matter who wins this fight.
Yeah, I think that we're all losing here is that it's just 3 rounds. That's the only thing we're losing here. If it was 5, we could really get a better gauge on who the better fighter is in this matchup. So it's really going to be about, hey, who comes out there and takes 2 rounds?
Yeah.
Assuming that nobody gets knocked out.
And we haven't seen Cannonier get to go 5 rounds yet either. I mean, obviously he was in a main event in his last one for Hermanson, and he, trained for that and everything. And then he's been a replacement for some main events before, I think. So he has prepared for five rounders, but has yet to actually go 5 rounds. So, yeah, that is an interesting little wrinkle, kind of the Zabit theory, right? But not, I wouldn't say we're at the same there. That's a little bit different. But guys who haven't gone 5 rounds yet, that it'd be nice to see it.
Yeah, agreed.